This is Gun Dogs and Guard Dogs with Les Graham and Ross McCarthy. So here we go. About 45 minutes of gun dogs, guard dogs, good dogs, some maybe not so good dogs, and a dash of gossip.
So here we are today with Gun Dogs and Guard Dogs International, because we're joined by Diane Kunas from is it Continental Canine Behaviour in Seattle?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I first met you, I think, Diane, in some weird pub in Merthyr Tydfil, of all places, about, I don't know, 100 years ago or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Maybe 20.
Yeah.
I thought you were a celebrity. Well, you are. But I had been reading, what's the word of the magazines out there? Dogs. And there was another one. And you were featured quite often. And when I met you, I was like, it's Ross McCarthy. It's Ross McCarthy.
Famous in
And I asked you if you wanted it, and you said, no, I'm good.
Oh dear. So you were in the UK you lived in the UK because you're one of the CIDBT tutors and stuff, and you lived in the UK for what, 3 years or something?
No, over 6.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I moved out there early in 2003. I moved back here about mid-year 2009. So yeah, it was over 6.
Oh wow. What
Yeah.
was your kind of dog journey? How did you get to kind of where you are now? What was the whole thing?
Yeah, good question. Well, obviously, I've always loved dogs. And when I lived in America before I moved to England, I was in the Midwest. I'm on the West Coast now. And I worked in corporate. So it was like pretty intense, pretty hardcore. I was an account executive. And just to decompress, I started volunteering, just training classes, real low level. Basically, I was just a volunteer and people paid enough to keep the heat and the lights on. And liked it. I liked it well. And then when I had the opportunity to move to the UK, I decided I'm done. I've got to start over. And, had no idea what I was going to do. And everything just kept circling back to dogs. And then I met you and I met Colin, and the rest is history. I mean, my timing was just, could not have been better. So, and then I just sort of clung on to you all and eventually got my master's degree, because I already had my bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan. And then I got my master's there, same place you guys did, Middlesex. And got kicked out of the country and moved back here and kept it going.
Got your degree and got booted out.
Yeah. He said, your visa's done.
And what's it been like since you've been back in the States? Because obviously you're still working. I mean, you do your tutoring work and stuff, but equally you're still practicing.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Seattle, which is in the Pacific Northwest. And like I said, we're about the same as London in terms of we're about the same distance from the equator. So experiencing the same weather, but Seattle is extremely dog friendly. And that's part of the reason why I'm here, is because I don't know how much I can talk about dogs across the nation, because it's state by state, it's region by region. And I knew that by moving here, in fact, in Seattle, we have more dogs than we have children. So that pretty much says how friendly we are. What's that?
I just said that's a result.
Yeah. So I was surprised when I saw that, but dogs are everywhere, and dogs are welcome everywhere, and people are just really accepting of dogs. So when I work with dog owners and dogs, I just don't meet any jerks. Everyone's really, really cool. So yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of the long and the short.
And what's the attitude towards them? Because like it's one thing having lots of dogs, people who love dogs, but over here we've got an issue with probably loving the dogs a bit too much, and it's all fur baby this and fur baby that. Have you got that culture over there as well?
Oh yeah. We've got it's pretty similar that way in terms of putting clothes on your dog and this is my child, and nothing but positive reinforcement. And then, you know, we got the whole spectrum. So really not a whole lot different than what I remember living there.
It's a lot worse since you left.
Is it?
A huge,
Yeah,
hugely
I kind of
worse.
get, you know, my thumb's on the pulse, and because I'm a tutor, you know, I get a lot of feedback from students. So it's good to kind of, like I said, keep my finger on the pulse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have, because we've got, I don't know, I mean, when you were here, I think the term balance trainer was maybe not quite used as it is now. And I think that's kind of come from the States, isn't it? Like balanced meaning, the balanced trainer is kind of synonymous now with people that use e-collars and prong collars as kind of like a standard, as opposed to kind of being balanced. Well, I guess it's balanced, but people think that, you know, it's those people that are maybe kind of on the other end of that spectrum. Is it more so kind of in the States now, seeing as that's kind of where are there more kind of trainers that kind of that side? Yeah.
It's balanced. We have, you know, a group of people that are, you know, I have to be careful. Like when I see clients, you know, usually that first meeting is kind of get a feel for what they expect and what they will and will not tolerate. And, you know, I don't use prongs. I don't use checks. I don't use, you know, I use a citronella collar, but only it's very, very rare. And I think that's pretty much, you know, that's pretty much accepted across the board. I do see a lot of prong collars out and about, yeah, but I just don't use them. I just don't feel the need to have to use them. So
no, I think
they are an interesting piece of equipment, on that they're really emotive. You know, you kind of love them or hate them, really, don't you?
Yeah.
I think they're more common in the States, aren't they? I mean, you frequently see people walking down the street in the States with a prong on their dog quite normally, whereas it's quite
normal. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's common, but it's not uncommon to see that. And again, I'm in Seattle. I don't know, and I lived in the Midwest for 20 some years, and as I remember, a lot more electrical fences. You know, in terms of containing a dog in the yard, where out here it's more, you know, we don't use electrical devices all that much. I mean, they're here and there, but not banned. You're banned across the board, aren't you?
No.
No.
The e-collar is only banned in Wales. The electric, let's call it the electric shock collar, is only banned in Wales. The freedom fence isn't banned anywhere.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be brought in. Scotland was going to wait and see what England did, and England were going to do it, and then they didn't get the motion through in time, so it never went ahead.
Oh, okay. I guess I did not know that.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
do you have, like, you know, over here, Diane, we've got all these blooming nonsensical laws that we have to follow as dog behaviorists and dog owners. Do you have like a lot of restrictions in relation to the law? Because when I lived in New Zealand, we had no laws at all other than the dog had to be licensed. We had nothing that we had to work within the remit of, you know, and we're working with dogs. Do you have, are you kind of shackled in the way that we are?
No, at least not out here. And as I mentioned, it's pretty much regional, and then on a state level. So states have their own, and I think I actually wrote this down. There are about half the states have BSL, and then there are about half, a little less than half that don't. And then other than that, it's by region. So a region like Denver, Colorado, which is a lot like Seattle in terms of its progressiveness, banned pit bulls for a long period of time, and that's since been lifted. But you know, that's not the case across the board. It just depends on where you're living. And here, we have a license law, but in terms of dangerous dogs, it's pretty lax. You know, if it's not that enforced.
Mm.
So
What about the other things like, you know, the noise abatement and clean neighborhoods, and because you know, the noise abatement, you can get not an answer, but you can get a ticket if your dog's too noisy. You can get a court order
yeah,
if your dog's making a lot of noise.
yeah. You can complain, and obviously there's, you know, there are laws to, you know, clean up after your dog, and but again, if you don't, you just you more get shamed than somebody picking up the phone and calling you out. And
Uh-huh.
that's pretty much what it is. It's like sort of a
Wow.
gentleman's agreement that you just don't do that. And when you
Mm.
do that, you just, you know, as opposed
Watching you.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah,
know.
got mine. And I'm sorry, I've got another question on just like the law, because this is, I find it really fascinating, because because of me living overseas as well, and just comparing like the three countries now. So
Yeah,
um what was again in New Zealand as well, it was very regional, so different areas had different laws. And where we lived in Papakura, but you could only have two dogs.
oh,
That
great.
was, you were in our county, if you like, you were
Yeah.
only allowed to have two dogs, and if you wanted more than two dogs, you had to get permission from the council and also from your neighbours. Okay.
Oh, right,
Then if
okay,
you went down to Franklin, you were allowed up to five dogs. Okay,
okay.
so depending on which state you lived in, depend on how many dogs you were allowed to have, um, just without any permission or any extra um, licensing. But one of the things that was getting very popular in New Zealand was, oh God, the term debarking the dogs.
What?
Yeah, because the thing is, the more dogs you had, the more likely they were to bark,
Oh,
and the
yeah,
more likely you were to get in trouble with the council and get your dogs taken off you. So if you couldn't
yeah.
get the
Okay.
dogs to stop barking, they used to debark the dogs, where they actually cut the vocal cords. Okay, so I take
Ouch.
it that's not done in the States.
Yeah, not that I'm aware. I mean,
Yeah, because
maybe it is, but it's
it's not
not.
done
Yeah,
here, but you know,
yeah.
if you want a lot of dogs and you want your neighbours not to report you and for your dogs to be taken and destroyed, then they would debark the dogs.
Right. Well, there is by state how many dogs per household you can have, and I think here in Washington it's 50.
50,
Most states
five
are about
zero.
four.
Oh my God.
Most states it's four, but again, I can't imagine it ever being enforced. I hadn't even heard of it, let alone if somebody knocks on your door and counts your dogs. Um, so yeah, like I just don't think, you know, the laws are there, but it's a blind eye everywhere.
Wow.
So,
That
although
sounds
I would suspect if you're boarding dogs and you know your neighbors complain, yeah, you know, there's going to be a problem, but you wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
So, well, at least not here.
it sounds quite
So,
a cool place to live, really, doesn't it?
It does.
yeah,
It does.
yeah, dogs versus kids, and yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any issues with dog? Like we've just, I mean, we've had in the UK, we've had a nightmare over the last kind of couple of years with the XL bully issues, and been recently added to the Dangerous Dogs Act and all of that stuff. Do you have many issues that go on, kind of, I suppose, in your state with the pit bulls or breeds like that with fatalities and stuff?
Yeah, but you just don't like in the UK. The UK is probably the size of Texas.
Mm.
Um, so it's just small. I mean, you have a case and you hear it. I mean, I remember living in the UK, and if there was a dog attack, I mean, you knew about it the next day. And
Yeah.
here you just don't. I mean, you hear cases here and there, but it's not front page news so much. And then in terms of attitudes towards dogs, yeah, you have your group of people that have issues with pit bulls or pit bull types. Um, Not out here. I mean, I see tons and tons of pit bulls. I mean, I'm in the city. I'm not downtown, but I'm in Seattle proper. And I walk my dog, sorry, my feet here. I walk her every single day through the city. And I see probably, I don't know, a dozen pit bulls on a walk. mean, they're pretty common.
Mm.
And then in terms of dog owners or people that I talk to, a very small fraction is uncomfortable with that. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, they're great dogs. But I know there are other states that, no, the attitude is completely different. They just don't accept them, like, like I said, Denver, it was restricted for a long period of time. So it just depends on where you are. And then otherwise here, there are bans depending on where you want to live. So if you want to live in a certain apartment or condo complex, they might have a ban on certain breeds. That's about it.
You could just ignore that, right? Like you ignore everything other law.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because we've got, like, the UK, we think we're a big important country, but actually we're really quite small, aren't we? You know, it's tiny. Like I've lived in Australia, and that's just vast. And
Yeah.
The UK is like a tiny little country, a little dot in this blue compared with these other countries. It's just so
Yeah, I
interesting.
remember. Yeah, when I lived there, at one point, I was in Suffolk, and I drove to like the uppermost part of Scotland. So it was Badachra, so it was in the Highlands, and it was 12 hours. So that was pretty much tip to tip, 12 hours. And yet, if I were to go across the nation here, it's like 3 days,
Yeah.
12 hours per day. So that's some perspective.
It really is. We used to live down on the south coast, and we drive from the south coast to the northeast, and
Yeah,
so it's like 7 hours. But that wouldn't
yeah,
even get me from Melbourne to Sydney, in the car.
right.
It's like, okay, and then you've got this
Yeah,
vast country above it as well. No, it's really interesting.
yeah. And and when I was in the UK, when you would say it like a dog person's name, like Ian Dunbar or Ross McCarthy or Les Graham, oh yeah. Everybody knows, you know who you are, and I'll say to my students, or they'll bring up your names, or other names that I know. You pretty much know everybody. But here, if somebody says, well, do you know whatever, Paul Smith? It's like, no, never heard of him. No, just
Yeah.
so. Yeah. So if you were saying, do you know Diane Kunas? Who? Yeah. Which is, flip side of the coin.
And talking of that, Diane, do you have because obviously there's lots of trainers in the States, aren't there? Clearly, like there are everywhere. What kind of qualifications and stuff do you? Is the industry regulated over there, or it's similar to here?
No, it's not. That's a really good question. No, it's not. And I suspect, and I should know this. I suspect there are a lot of people out there saying, "Yeah, give me a call. I train, I do behavior work," and they really don't, because I've had enough clients that I'm like their third or fourth person, because they've gone through them and nothing, it hasn't worked. But in terms of that goes back to, you said, what was your journey? Back when I was going or considering college, I'm like, how can I work with dogs? How can I work with dogs? What can I do? Where are their careers? And unless you were getting into a veterinary field, they didn't exist. And I think that's still the case today. So when I moved to the UK, and it was like, oh, I can go to school. That was just eye-opening. Um, and obviously, since I've moved here, I haven't really looked into schools or what's available, because I've got my degree. Um, but otherwise, yeah, I don't think it's not all that, you know. Uh, and I should say too, when I moved here, I got my master's degree almost immediately. I moved here, and then maybe less than 6 months later, I got my master's degree. So in that period of time, before I had my master's, a lot of people would say, I would get the grill, how many dogs have you worked with? How many dogs have you worked with this behavior problem? But the minute that, MA was after my initials, nobody asks me. Nobody, yeah, it's just like, it's assumed, okay, and then I just went based on referrals, and I never had to like sell myself, which is a nice place to be.
It's a lovely place to be. Mr. McCarthy, we both need to start using what MAs, mate. We don't put MA on anything, Diane. We're terrible.
Why?
I don't know. I suppose it's a British thing, isn't it?
I don't think it's
Oh,
quite
that's
as
interesting.
valued here, is it? I don't think that. I think people are more interested now in your ability or your experience, I think, than whether you've got MA after your name or anything else.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting.
And we worked really hard to get that. We should be
Yeah,
putting it out there.
exactly. Well, I think because it's so uncommon for somebody to have a degree that's dog related that they just assume, that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you very special.
In the nicest possible way, Ross. Diane, what did you do your master's on? I mean, I know it was a long time because I can remember we were looking at it, all of us were looking at it at the same time, and because we were debating whether to go down the BA route or the MA route, and
Yeah,
I can remember at the time, but I can't remember what you did your MA on. What was it?
breed specific
Breed.
behavior. Yeah. And actually, Les, I have to thank you because when Middlesex was kind of an option, to explore, I just assumed I would have to get a bachelor's. I just didn't know that my American bachelor degree would translate. So I was just going down the path to get another BA. And you were the one that said, no, 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 no. Here's how you go in and get your MA. So I would have just blindly said, okay. And nobody else would have guided me and said, no, you can get an MA. So that was a huge deal.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very
Yeah.
welcome. You're very, because I did the same with me and Ross as well. It's like, right, let's do the MA. Let's forget this BA nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. But
No,
yeah,
thank you.
breed
That's
specific.
kind. Thank you.
So breed specific is what I studied, and that's still that's still kind of where my passion is.
Mhm.
And I do have a breed specific course, and it's my absolute favorite. It's my favorite, and I really get on my students because when they talk about a breed, I'm like, dive deeper, dive deeper, dive deeper. Don't tell me something I can get from this book here. Tell me something that I don't know. And so I'm constantly learning from them because I'm kind of forcing them to work harder.
I think as a tutor, I think you learn a lot from your students, and I think it
Oh,
really,
totally.
really expands your mind because every now and again there's like this little gem in it, and you go, "Ooh," and then it takes you as a tutor down a little rabbit hole, doesn't it? And then
Totally.
you learn all this stuff as well. Diane, what's the course? It's breed specific. What is it?
Behavior.
Breed specific behavior. So the
Breed specific
CIDBT, isn't
behavior.
it?
Yeah.
And because I specialize in gun dogs, but I think it is so good. I mean, I've worked with all breeds, but I think regardless of what you specialize in, whether it's gun dogs or guard dogs, I think it's important that you have an appreciation,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
at the very least, for the different breed groups, let alone
Exactly.
breeds.
Yeah. Well, I am a guard dog. Sorry to say. I like the working group and I like the guard dogs, but I really like the bullies. I'm a bully gal.
I know we haven't asked you how did you? So what was your first dog, and how did you get into bullies?
How did I get the what?
How did you get into the breed that you love?
Oh yeah. My first dog was a boxer. Um, and it was one of these, I had a breed book. In fact, I still have it, it's all dog-eared. And I just started eliminating. Like, I don't want dogs that shed, I don't want dogs that are high energy, I don't want this, I don't want that. And as I continued to narrow it down, that's kind of where I landed. And I'm also, been married 34 years, so it was also what's important to him. So between the two of us, that's kind of where we landed. And I like the breed quite well. But they're a little bit too high energy for me anymore. I got to a point where I was like, I love the breed, I would still own it, but I just don't have that energy. So I don't know whether I can say I upgraded or downgraded. So now I have a Dogue de Bordeaux, and this is my second French Mastiff, because they're just kind of the same, but like much less, you know, of this.
Frantic.
Yeah. So, you know, you take her for a walk, she's good to go for the day. But I still have all the affection and all the, you know, the guarding part of it that I love. So, but for whatever reason, I just latch on to bull breeds, and that's where my eye goes when I see dogs. You know, I do bull breeds. But I like all dogs, and I still like when I see clients, I get excited when it's something different than, you know, the standard doodle. And I like French bulldogs, but that's probably the breed I see the most. I
Really?
think you guys too.
They're very popular. The Frenchies are
Yeah.
really popular and getting more popular.
And we did a survey, Ross and I, several years ago, and it was the same for both of us, for both countries. French Bulldog is as in the breed that we see most often for behavior problems.
I think we see less of them now, which is probably quite a good thing, because there's
Oh,
lots.
do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think people are a little bit more aware of kind of the health ramifications of having sort of the brachycephalic breeds and stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
there's less, but when we see them, they're pretty intense, aren't they? The Frenchies.
Yeah.
They're very difficult to read.
You know, and the ones that I see, you can tell they're for the most part, they're a bit off in terms of they're just not the right color, or they're not the right size, or, you know, so obviously, you know, they're poorly bred. And the designer aspect of it has its ramifications. So I think that plays in it as well. But they're still quite popular.
So
Do
you
you get
still have
many
the same,
males? Sorry, Ross.
sorry, no, I was just going to say you have the same trends over there that we do with this kind of, you know, designer dogs and crossbreeds and cockapoos and French bulldogs and following a fashion.
Lots of doodles. The big doodle cross here is now Bernedoodle.
Is it
Yeah,
what?
that kind of in the last 2 or 3 years, that breed has gone, and I see tons of them. But doodles in general, that's pretty high of breeds that I see. And
Yeah.
obviously Goldens and Laps.
Oh, you do have a lot of those. The Bernedoodle, we don't have too many of those here right now, but I'm sure that'll be the next trend. We've got some, but it's not huge.
Yeah, I've seen one, I think. Oh, no. No, what's the Bernedoodle? I was thinking about Saint Bernard.
Oh yeah.
Bernard. So I can pronounce it the way that you pronounce it.
Yes, your accent, Ross.
Always a problem, always a problem. You were just saying, Dan, that you tend to, when you see your clients, they've seen 2 or 3 people before you.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
is
typically.
that? Why are you the third on the list? Why has everything else failed?
Well, there is one school here that is very, very popular. I don't mind saying it's called Ahimsa, and it's basically 100% positive. Like you don't even say no to your dog. And they offer extensive classes. They call them socialization classes. And basically, it's just getting a bunch of puppies together to play. They don't really learn anything. So I invariably, if I have a dog owner that's gone through the HIMSA program, they don't have any results. So I get called because, you know, I just put in, you know, 6, 8, 12 weeks of training, and I have the same dog. Otherwise, and this ties back to what we were saying earlier, I don't think there's a clear-cut understanding of the difference between training and behavior management. So when people go to a trainer saying, I want to deal with this problem over here, a trainer isn't skilled at dealing with that. Like, you know, aggression, anxiety. Most of the behavior cases I get are fear-based. And it's just something that a lot of trainers are, you know, versed in dealing with. So I think that there's the owners are understanding that, you know, I need to find somebody who deals specifically with this behavior, not just hire a trainer. So that's a big reason there. It's just they don't know that there's a difference.
And do you find a lot of your clients are very kind of, I know we sort of touched on this already, but most of your clients are very kind of open-minded to methodology, or they've already kind of done their research on Google and they want everything to be reward-based?
It's a mix. It's a mix. You know, I have clients who know everything. And, you know, when I talk to them, they're, you know, they're on board and they're nodding, or they're, you know, kind of over, talking about what they know and how they know it and why they know it. And then I have just as many who just don't have a clue. You know, I can say something very basic to them. And just it's like, oh, you know, I didn't know that. So it's really the whole, you know, the whole spectrum, which makes our jobs interesting, because nothing is ever the same.
No, it sounds just exactly the same in Seattle as it is in London. So.
Yeah, probably. But you know, I have to admit though, I don't get any really. I mean, I've had cases where I've been afraid for sure. You know, where you know, keep the dog, you know, muzzled and on a leash. But for the most part, I don't have. We just don't have really out of control dogs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It changed a little bit after COVID, and that kind of kicked my butt a bit, because and you know, you have the same problem, still experiencing it, but I don't say, you know, this dog is too damaged. You know, I just don't say that. I say there's always, you know, there are very few dogs that are too damaged to be rehabilitated. And after COVID, I saw more dogs that I was like, I don't know if this can be fixed. I don't know. And a lot of it had to do with the owners just are not committed. You know, they had no clue what they were doing, and they're way over their heads. And this dog has some very, very serious problems. Anxiety, fear, and then everything that goes with that. So I think that was, in the last few years, has been hard on me in terms of seeing it and just feeling gutted, because sometimes there's nothing you can do. So otherwise, you know, I was feeling like this is Disneyland. I love my job. I never feel like I came home and I just felt beat up. I always came home feeling like, you know, that went really well, and I feel like they're gonna, you know, put my words to practice, and for the most part, they do. That's when I had the biggest sort of eye-opening. You know, you know, come home and feel disgruntled after a day's work. Just the same for you guys.
It is. It's really hard when you go to see a dog and you think, you know, you look at the dog and you think, I just don't know if the owner's capable of putting this right. If it's if either the dog, if the dog's gone too far, or if the owner's not capable, it's really it's a horrible feeling, isn't it?
It is, because I absolutely hate the word rehome. You have to rehome this dog. I hate to have to say that. And I try not to in any given case. It's like, what can we do to save this dog and to keep this dog in this family?
Or alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's only been a couple, I can count on one hand, if not less, the number of times I've had to say that you've got to put this dog down. This dog is not safe. And I don't think that's a huge number considering how many I've seen. But I just, like I said, after COVID, I just felt like, you know, I was feeling a little bit too big in the britches in terms of, you know, the world is so, you know, we embrace our dogs and we're all in a good place, and that's not the case.
Mm.
So, and listening to your last podcast on rescue, what's the name of the rescue center? I can't remember the name of the one that
Appledam.
yeah, that's rough.
Is it similar in the States? I was going to ask you that actually, if you're aware of kind of since COVID, how things are kind of in the world of rescue and
Yeah, it's probably quite a bit the same. You know, you get your horror stories, um, dogs that end up in rescue and the reasons why. Yeah, I don't think it's any different. Um, yeah, I think it's, especially now after COVID, I think it's the same. I think we're experiencing the same.
yeah, clearly a worldwide mess, not just UK.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
It's heartbreaking,
So
isn't it?
now I'm all depressed.
I know it is. I'm sitting here thinking it is. It's just a mess, isn't it? And we've commented on social media as well. You know, the whole COVID thing was be kind, be kind.
Yeah,
And yet there's nothing kind about what's going on with the dogs at the minute, or how
that's
people
right.
treat each other in relation to the dogs. It's not great. It's not great.
Right.
but the good thing is, like you just said, Diane, we make a difference to the ones we can make a difference to, don't we? Which is, all we can do really.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's really up to the owners. The old cliche, it's not about the dog, it's about the owner. You focus on what is the owner capable of, what are they willing to do, and you know, at the end of the day, it can be done, but it's hard work. It's
Yeah.
hard work. In a lot of the cases, it's hard work because, you know, they didn't do the homework early on, and they're in a situation, and it takes that much more work to fix it.
Or they were led astray by not the best trainers in the world, and they went down
Well,
one
right.
route and then having to completely undo it and commit again to a whole new training regime.
Yeah, totally.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I'm just having some cases flash by my eye, my memory. And yeah. Um,
What are the most
yeah.
common breeds that you see now, Diane? I know you're just saying about French bulldogs and stuff. Do you work with all breeds, or are there some that you see more
Yeah,
of?
all breeds, and a lot of doodles, a lot of goldens, a lot of labs, a lot of mixes, a lot of French bulldogs, um, a lot of yeah, it's a pretty wide range. But oddly, there are certain breeds that I don't see at all. Like I can only count maybe a handful of Rottweilers, handful of German Shepherds, which seems odd because those are the top breeds in the nation. Lots like number 9, German Shepherds like number 3 or 4, and yet I'm excited when I see them. But you'd expect that I would see more, but I just don't for whatever reason.
Do you think that could be because I mean I know, like, I'm known as working with naughty gun dogs, but I did see Rotties and Shepherds, but not a huge amount. And do you think that's because when people are getting more responsible when they get those kind of breeds and they're putting the effort in straight away,
That's
compared
what
to
I'm
somebody
thinking
who like
too.
gets a Labrador or a Spaniel?
Yeah, and that's what I think too, is that they know what they're getting into and they know what they have to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good point. And that's one of what I've thought along too, is that, you can't have a German Shepherd unless you know, you're up for it,
Mhm.
because they'll know if you don't.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant.
That memo's not got to the UK. Well, it's not got to London yet. Well, I want a German Shepherd, so I'll have one because I can, and then you get a problem.
Oddly, I was just doing a little bit of research before this, and the most popular dog in Seattle is Chihuahua. I would not have guessed
Wow.
that at all. And now that I know that, I'm starting to see them more. So they're out there, but I just wouldn't have thought them as them being, and it's probably because a lot of Seattle is like apartment living, condo living, and that's just an easy breed to have in a small space. Again, I don't see a whole lot. And I also divide Chihuahuas into two categories. One that they're on the ground and on a leash, and one that they're not on a leash and they're in somebody's arms. And that's two different Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
And the person that's carrying their Chihuahua doesn't need help because they just carry their Chihuahua, and it doesn't matter if they bite people because I'm carrying it. And the one on the ground has an owner that, you know, treats him like a dog. And that's probably what I don't see a lot. They don't want help or they don't need help.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
No, it's fascinating, isn't it? How similar things are. You know, people walking around in there with their chihuahuas in their little bags and stuff. It's international.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, it's funny because I have Dogue de Bordeaux, and like I said, I walk her every day through the city, and I walk through crowds, and I take her down to the market, and she goes to different fairs, and she's absolutely bomb-proof. But and she has a lot of dogs will have a go at her, and she just, you know, will turn her head and do all the, you know, she's just over the top with her calming signals. But when I walk her, I'm more worried about when I'm coming head on with another dog. I'm more worried about the little ones. You know, those are the ones I'm giving a wide berth to, not because of my dog, but because I know that dog, that little dog on the leash is going to, you know, and invariably they do, which is unfortunate. And luckily my dog doesn't do anything, but it's just funny that's my mentality when I'm walking, is to avoid the little dogs and then just go right by, you know, pit bulls.
I guess it's the same thing, isn't it? People that, I mean, I have lots of dogs when I'm out walking mine. I have lots of small dogs going berserk on the lead, barking and jumping about. And I think if
Yeah.
my dog's doing that, that would be very uncool and people wouldn't like it. But people just accept it, don't they? Dogs going absolutely wild, barking at your dog, and they just carry on walking with it, jumping about.
Yeah. There's no way I would be able to do that with, you know, her.
No.
Yeah.
What are, when you're walking Jolene, what are people's kind of reactions to her? Most people think she's lovely and cute, or most people just give you a swerve and think that's a massive dog. Let's get her on.
You know, for the most part, I can't walk without her drawing a crowd.
Okay.
She's a very friendly dog, and she's big. She's about do you do pounds or do you do stone?
Stones.
So she's just under 9 stone.
Okay.
So she's a big girl. Yeah, she's a big girl. And for the most part, she's kind of a celebrity around here. A lot of people will, you know, hey, Jolene. I take her to an event. There's a car show. It's like 2 miles long, and it's right here on the ridge, you know, which just sits up high. You can see the mountains on either side, the Olympics and the Cascades. And trying to get through the car show, and she was a bigger attraction than the cars were. And it got to the point where I had to start saying no, you know, can I see your dog? And then a crowd would come around, and then she's rolling over on her back and showing her belly, and everybody's rubbing her. So it got to the point where I was like, I've got to go. So yeah, the reaction is typically very positive. Want to meet her, want to know what she is, want to say hi. And there's a very small percentage of people that do this, very small. So
how many of them remember Turner and Hooch? Do any of them go, she's like Turner and Hooch?
Yeah. I hear that a lot, you know, as I'm walking by, I hear, oh, big dog, Hooch, you know, I'll hear that. And funny thing is,
original, aren't they?
Her uncle, same breeder, we grew up at Westminster, which is like our crux, and he was one of the Hooch dogs in the Disney reboot. So she's like a bit of a celebrity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Turner and Hooch, you know, it's all good fun. It's kind of a stupid movie, but it's all good fun, and I watch it for the dog. The reboot.
Oh, is the reboot not good? I forgot that you made it. The only one that I know is Tom Hanks, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they did a
this
movie,
is
not a
not your
movie, like a
room.
television series. And I think
Oh,
it was
okay.
one season and maybe 10 episodes. Oh, it was grim. Yeah, it was rough. But, you know, her uncle was in it, and I just watched it for the scenes where he was in it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
How funny.
But yeah, I do get that, you know, hoot, what is she? Or I want to guess what she is.
What
It's
do
all
people
good.
guess? What do people guess? Some kind of boxer mix or something? What do people think?
With my Bordeaux before her, it was always boxer cross pit bull. That was what people thought, or bull mastiff. With her, it's mastiff. What kind of mastiff is that? Is it a bull? Is it a English? And then I'll say no, it's in French. I stopped saying Dogue de Bordeaux because most of the people go, what? So I just figure instead of having to keep the conversation going, I just say French Mastiff, and Mastiff is all I hear, and they're good to go. So they're rare. They're very, very rare in these parts.
Wow.
So when I'm out with her, you know, she gets noticed. And her two biggest flaws are she's a great, great dog. She's a little too friendly, and she doesn't bark enough. So
We
Does
those
she
are good
drool?
problems to have.
Does she drool a lot?
Yeah.
And then shakes it
And
and it comes off your ceiling, no?
oh, yeah. So like if I'm walking her, oh yeah, it's all over my house.
Yeah.
And I'm house proud, and yet drool doesn't bother me. Hair bothers me. So explain that. I don't know why drool is okay, but when I'm walking the ridge, and I'll walk, like an outdoor cafe or a bar or whatever, and she'll have a drink of water or steak. There have been a time when she hits somebody who's having their coffee on the arm, and I kind of just walk a little faster.
Just leaving a trail around Seattle so you can find your way home.
Yeah.
like a snail of slime.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Jolene was here.
Sorry about that.
No, they're not for the faint-hearted, are they?
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you, Diane, for those people that are interested in maybe looking at some of the courses that you deliver? Because I have to say you are one of our most popular tutors. People always have nothing but amazing things to say about you.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm doing a slow retirement with seeing clients. And we've had this conversation before, because I'm getting old, and at some point I'm going to get out of the city and have like a little more privacy, more land. So I'm starting to get out, but in terms of my CIDBT courses, I don't think I'm ever going to give that up, because why? I really, really like it. And the reason why I like it is because I like the students and their passion. I mean, you get these, 18-year-olds that are like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I've done my whole life. And then I got people that are my age and older that are just like, I just want to get out of my accounting job, or, I just want to put my toe in the water. And, and everything in between. So, yeah, I probably am popular with my students because I, I put in good time, and I'm very connected to their journey. So I teach a foundation course, and so that's kind of where I see the whole spectrum of students coming in and reasons for taking the course. And then, like I said, my breed specific course is my favorite because students that want to learn more than I do, and I learn a lot from them. And then outside of that, what else do I tutor? I have a couple of bereavement courses, and I don't have a whole lot of students there, but I like the fact that most of my bereavement students are adding value to their current positions, whether they're in a veterinary field or they're in a behavior field, and they just want to be able to empathize with their clients who are going through, obviously our dogs are, a fraction of our lives. And I'm a highly empathetic person, so that course suits me pretty well. Even though it's not as popular, but that's pretty much the courses that I on a day-to-day basis, students that I deal with.
No, brilliant.
So yeah, and you've heard me say that I'm not going anywhere.
No, good. Thank goodness for that. And I'm sure people will look forward to seeing you wandering around Seattle with your Dogue de Bordeaux.
Yeah. It's funny because I'll be grading papers in the middle of the afternoon, and I'll send them off, and then I have students say, "Wow, you stayed up all night to read my work," and I'm like,
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm that committed. Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
No, that's good. Just don't phone them up in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah. And I've done that to you. I've sent you some WhatsApp things, and I'm like, oh crap, it's after midnight. Sorry, Ross. Especially when you respond, then I feel really bad.
No, don't sleep well. You're all right. Well, it's great to catch up with you, Diane, and thank you so much for that.
Yeah. No, this was fun. And I'll leave you with one last story, because this is, having lived in the UK, there's some things that I don't want to let go of, like language. I will never say gas. I will never say gas. Between these walls, I keep it alive. So had this client did this whole consult, everything was going great, and when I left, he said, "Oh, by the way, my dog is Basil, not Basil," because I just default to Basil. But he did call me back, so I didn't offend him too badly. But, there's where, sometimes I slip.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm glad we taught you well. Multilingual. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's a bonus of the experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, Diane, it was lovely to talk to you again.
Yeah, you guys, thank you so much for asking me, inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
Fun. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and we can go to bed now, can't we?
Yes, we can go to bed now.
And I'll switch from coffee to,
Tea.
there we go. Okay.
Thanks for listening. It's not just gun dogs and not just guard dogs, but all things canine, as we hope you have discovered. Please like, share and subscribe, and help us spread a bit of common sense back into dog ownership. And a review wouldn't go amiss either. Catch up with Les and Ross again in about 14 days for more canine conversations. Until next time, stay well and enjoy your dogs. Any dog related questions or topics, just drop an email to talk@cfba.uk or message us via facebook.com/gundogs and guard dogs podcast.